What's up, ladies and gentlemen? Wolfcryer here with a look at the brand new Necromancer set in Diablo 3 as it currently stands on the PTR for patch 2.6.9. Now, this is the PTR, so there might be changes by the time this rolls around to the live servers, and if that is the case, I will put that in the description down below. But overall, I don't think this build itemization is going to change at all, even if there are changes to the set or other items that accompany this build. This is a very fun build, but it will not, as it currently stands, be the best build for Necromancers in Season 21. I think that's going to belong to the Corpse Explosion build and the brand new Legacy of Dreams Mage build that has come about during this PTR. With all that being said, I personally still enjoy this build. It's a pretty strong build. I've personally done a Greater Rift 115 with this build with no augments, 2500 Paragon, and mediocre gear at best. I think that with a little bit more Paragon, some augments on your gear, and pretty decent gear, you should be in the 120 range with this build. So, very strong build. Not the best, but also very, very tanky. So great for newer players when it comes to Necromancer. Necromancer in its lifetime has been known to be very brittle for the most part and easily killed, but this set is very tanky. And this build is based off of the brand new set for the Necromancer, the Masquerade of the Burning Carnival. And this is going to allow our simulacrums to no longer take damage. They gain all runes, and their cooldown is refreshed whenever you die, because you're always going to want these simulacrums up no matter what, because the 4-piece set bonus double dips in the damage mitigation. While you have a simulacrum active, damage is reduced by 50%, and then it also acts like a built-in unity, allowing you to split all damage taken with your simulacrums. So very strong defensive bonus there with that 4-piece set bonus. The 6-piece set bonus, your Bone Spear deals 10,000% increased damage, and simulacrums gain triple this bonus. This is where your damage is going to be coming from. This is a Bone Spear build, and it is, like I said, pretty strong. We are wearing 5 pieces of this set with this build and running a Ring of Royal Grandeur in the cube, which allows us to wear 5 pieces instead of 6, and we are going to combine that with the All Guilds set. We're going to wear 2 pieces of All Guilds as well, and that will give us the 3-piece set bonus for that. That's going to give us some more damage and damage reduction, especially for those elite packs, and this set really complements this build quite a bit. We're also going to be wearing Haunted Visions, which is going to allow our simulacrums to drain only 1% of our maximum life every second, and they will now last forever, giving us that constant damage mitigation. They can also duplicate Grim Scythe now instead of Skeletal Mage. You can no longer double your Skeletal Mages with the simulacrums, but they will help you get some of your essence back, which is very useful. We're also going to be running Chrisman's Sentence, which is going to give us up to 100% increased damage against slowed enemies, or triple this bonus against enemies affected by any other type of control impairing effect. And our bone armor is going to give us a stun, which is going to trigger that triple bonus. And we're also going to be wearing a Convention of Elements as well. The Necromancer is really awesome to use Convention of Elements, as it only has 3 elements in the rotation for this ring. So you are constantly going to be able to deal a ton of damage while you are in that physical damage rotation. Then we're going to be running Dainty's Binding. I have one of the older ones here. You actually gain damage reduction whenever an enemy is afflicted by any of your curses. And we are going to be running Frailty on this build, so we do get that damage mitigation as well. And we're going to pair all of this up with Scythe of the Cycle. This is going to allow our secondary skills, such as Bone Spear, to deal up to an additional 400% damage while Bone Armor is active, but this also reduces the remaining duration of Bone Armor by 4 seconds each time you use Bone Spear. Now, I have been fiddling around with this build, and I have found it to be very comparable to utilize Trag'Oul's Corroded Fang. You get less of a damage increase with this, but you also get the ability to constantly have your bone armor up. So it's kind of a pick and choose your poison here with regards to these two weapons. I personally still enjoy Scythe of the Cycle because I just focus on my rotation and make sure that bone armor is available for my physical rotation on my convention of elements, and then I can deal a ton of damage during that and spend the rest of my time getting that essence back up. Especially useful against Rift Guardians, but Trag'Oul's Corroded Fang is also a very viable option. For your phylactery, you can pretty much use any phylactery out there for your Necromancer. And you're going to want to focus on area damage, crit chance, and hopefully you can get some bone spear damage on it as well. And then, of course, the damage and intelligence on it. You can also try to get cooldown on it if you want as well, especially if you're using a Scythe of the Cycle that allow your bone armor to get back up in time for that physical rotation. But I usually don't have any problems with this build as far as that goes. Over in the cube, for the weapon slot, we're running Maltorius Petrified Spike. Bone Spear now costs 40 essence and deals 700% increased damage. This does increase the essence cost for your Bone Spear, but the damage increase is way too much to pass up with this build, especially since this is a Bone Spear build. Next up, we're running Razith's Volition, and we're only focused on the second part of this, which is you gain 50% damage reduction if your essence is not full, so another damage mitigator, which is why this build is ridiculously tanky. And then, of course, we've got the Ring of Royal Grandeur. Now, for your gems, we're running Bane of the Trapped because it's a very powerful build for pretty much every DPS build in the game. You gain additional damage when enemies are affected by slows or other control impairing effects. When this gem reaches level 25, it is in itself a control impairing effect. So always good to have on you. It's a pretty huge damage increase. And we're also going to be running Bane of the Stricken, which is going to allow us more damage against the Rift Guardians, and we deal more damage as time passes while we're fighting Rift Guardians. This is not a build that is going to utterly quickly destroy Rift Guardians, so Stricken is very necessary with this build when high level pushing. For my third gem, this is optional, ladies and gentlemen, but I personally run with Pain Enhancer. This is going to give me a bleed, and then you gain 3% increased attack speed for each bleeding enemy within 20 yards. You get that bleed if you deal a critical hit towards an enemy, and I like to group up a whole bunch of stuff, get a lot of attack speed up, and then as my physical rotation comes around on my convention of elements, I just light everything up with Bone Spear, and it pretty much can drop a ton of stuff really fast, and then I wait till my next rotation. You could instead opt for Gogok of Swiftness if you'd like. That's a pretty decent one to have. If you're looking to stay at range, you can run with Zaze to give you more damage while you are further away. So any of those is viable. I personally really enjoy Pain Enhancer with this build though, which is probably why it's a comparable build when I'm using Trag'Oul's Corroded Fang instead of the Scythe of the Cycle, because occasionally my bone armor does fall off with this build, probably because I'm using Pain Enhancer. But overall, I like the super attack speed that you can get in big clusters of mobs. For your skills, you're running with Bone Armor. This is going to give you some damage mitigation, and it's going to stun nearby enemies because we are using the Dislocation rune. This is very necessary to have up during your physical rotation if you're using Scythe of the Cycle. This has to be up, otherwise you're going to lose a ton of damage. Then we've got Blood Rush Potency. This is our movement skill that we're going to be running, and this is going to allow us to gain some armor for 2 seconds every time we cast this, and this is very useful for getting around the rift. Next up, I am running Frailty. Aura of Frailty. Now, this is going to give me a Frailty Aura, which kills enemies within 15 yards that have less than 15% health. I like running the Aura because it's one less thing I have to worry about with this build. Next up, we've got Simulacrum. Doesn't matter what rune you pick, you're going to get all of the runes, so that doesn't matter. This is necessary for this build. You need the damage mitigation from this, and your simulacrums are pretty much the ones doing most of your damage, so this has to be part of this build. Then I run Grim Scythe, Frost Scythe right now. I'm not really running the Cursed Scythe rune, mainly because I want to be able to increase my attack speed when I'm hitting with this, and it really works well with my play style. If I wanted the Cursed Scythe rune, I could go with that instead. It's not a big deal, but I like the increased attack speed. You can get up to 15% additional attack speed when you're hitting with this, and you're going to be using this often to get your essence back anyways, so why not build up some attack speed while you're doing it? And then last but not least is Bone Spear. I am running Shatter with this build. Instead of piercing, this now detonates on the first enemy hit, dealing 500% weapon damage as physical to all enemies within 15 yards. I like to position myself in big groups of mobs and fire off my bone spears and pretty much obliterate tons of stuff at the same time. Very good skill with this. It's how I personally like to run it. You can try out other runes with Bone Spear, see how it feels, but I like Shatter. It seems to work the best for me. For our passives, we are using Standalone, increase your armor by 100%, reduced by 10% for each active minion. I'm pretty sure that your 2 simulacrums count as minions, so you do bring this down to 80% instead of the full 100%, but I am not 100% sure on that. Next up, I use Bone Prison, Bone Spear, Bone Spikes, and Bone Spirit have a 30% chance to trap enemies in a bone prison for 3 seconds. Then I'm using Spreading Malediction. You get 1% damage bonus for each enemy afflicted by your curses. And like I said, with this build, I'm constantly gathering up a bunch of stuff and laying into it. So I've got a lot of enemies cursed because I'm running that Frailty Aura. And I finish up my passives with Serration. Bone Spikes, Bone Spear, and Bone Spirit deal 1% increased damage for every 1.5 yards from you, up to a maximum of 20%. Now, this could actually be changed out. It's what I've been currently running with, because occasionally I am further away from mobs, especially the RG sometimes. There you have my look at the brand new Necromancer set in Diablo 3. Like I said, it's a very fun build. I'm currently enjoying it on the PTR. If I go with Necromancer for Season 21, it's probably the build I'm going to stick with and see just how far I can push it. It's not going to be the best of the best, but it is a solid build. But all right, ladies and gentlemen, I want to say thank you so very much for taking the time out of your day to watch my video. I always greatly appreciate it. Don't forget to hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and let me know down in that comment section down below what build and what class you are going to be running in Season 21. All right, ladies and gentlemen, once again, thank you so very much, and you all have a fantastic day. Peace.